Hi students, in this video we're going to look at how to smooth data using what we call moving averages. Alright, so after watching this video you should be able to describe how data can be smoothed. You should be able to define moving averages and then use an odd point moving average to describe and explain trends in time series data. Biggest things you have to recall, so time series data is where we've got our time on our x-axis and whatever our response variable is on our y-axis. We also want to remember our descriptions of our time series data. So that is our trends, whether it's seasonal or cyclical, whether there's outliers. Okay, so talking about our descriptions of time series data is important for this lesson too. All right, so with seasonal and cyclical data, it can often be difficult to actually identify what the trend is just by looking at a graph. So looking at this example here, it's got the seasonal sort of peaks and the lows in between. It's a bit hard to see actually what is the data doing on the whole. And this is where using smoothing to smooth out those peaks and troughs can actually help give us a better idea for what the data is doing. Now, one way of smoothing data is called using moving averages. And the idea is you pick a certain number of points, it could be 3, 4, 5, and you're basically finding an average of 3 points or 4 points or 5 points, and that being the score that you're going to use on your y-axis to plot your graph. So for example, let's say we want to use a 3-point average. We can't use a 3-point average for 1 because we only have one data point here and one here at the very top. So we can't use a 3-point moving average for that sort of graph. We have to start at 2. Then with 2, we can use 1, 2, 3 data points. We'll find our average and then plot it there. And that will sort of give a bit of more of a smoother sort of curve, one that's not quite so jumpy like a seasonal or cyclical graph. And it will help give us a better idea for what our data or the trends of our data. Now, when using a moving average, it's important to identify how many data points we'll use. So we could use 3, 4, 5, but how many should we actually use? The best way to do that is to look at the scatter plot and find the difference between peaks. So looking at this one, we've got a difference of 3. 1, 2, 3. Between our peak and our next peak, that's another 3. So that's a big indicator that says we should use a 3-point moving average. And then once our graph is smoothed out, you can see our line is a lot smoother. And that gives us basically the averages across a bunch of series there and gives us a better indicator of what the data is doing. All right, so now we've got to fill out the following table using a 3-point moving average. So starting off, what we need is, to calculate a moving average, is we need one x value and then the 2 x values either side. So one lower, one higher. So we can't find a moving average for this first point. We've got a point below, but there's no point above for us to find a 3-point moving average for. We'll have to start with the next score. So with 2, what we're going to do is average our scores, the one above, the one at 2 itself, and the next one down, and average those numbers, you end up getting 4.3, which we can put into our table. Now, for 3, for our score of 3 here, to get our 3-point moving average, again, we'll use the one that matches up, the y value, and 3 points, the one above and the one below. And so we'll average those ones, 8 plus 2 plus 2 over 3, that's 4. We'll put that into our table. And then finally, for our 4th point, we're going to, we'll use the point that's in line, that matches up with our 4. Then we'll use the one above and one below, calculate the average, which is 4.66, and put it in our table. Continuing that same sort of pattern, we can fill in the rest of our table. And then we can then plot each of those points. And there's our smooth data curve. We can notice there that our data is increasing. The trend is actually showing that our data is increasing. started about 4, low 4s, and it's now ending up in the mid to high 5s. So there is that change there we can now see on average from that smooth curve. Alright, so after watching this video, you should be able to describe how data can be smoothed by using moving averages, define moving averages, and then use odd point moving averages to describe and explain trends in time series data.